give them a sniff, they will actually, take you by storm.
They must be incredibly lucky, right?
They should try to open with Cameron Green, who's really flexible.
Look far more amicable on the pitch. They are better behaved.
It's very much like the Holly stand in England and Edgbaston.
Dravid being Dravid, he kept batting and he kept batting and
Oh,
he
yeah.
did not care about scoring runs.
Pakistan historically has had a problem of captains wanting to be larger than life characters. Most of their test team batters and veterans, they are all going to be out on South Africa's T20.
Ultimately, more than just fans, we are also consumers of the sport, and sport is a product.
The strides that Test cricket has made in the last few years, wherein it has found its mojo back.
Cricket in South Africa is actually dying, if not already dead.
Arsenal are not exactly a polar bear in Arlington, Texas. I would say some Arsenal fans would preferably call it winning mentality. We deliver where it matters. But then at the same time, they are also not winning convincingly, and that is
their top goal scorer is actually Nketiah with just 5 goals.
Or in one way, you can say that the goals are spread throughout the team, which paints a positive picture. Okay, not one of the subjectivity research where I say everything is subjective. No, there is an objective morality that exists. But
I think they've been very quiet. I don't think they've been winning games in the swashbuckling fashion that we have gotten used to under Jurgen Klopp. That a 19-year-old Vitor Roque, who is one of the hottest prospects in Brazilian and world football, is actually going to come to walk into this lineup.
Secondly, he is not technically exactly the hottest prospect to come out of Brazilian football as a striker right now. If you expecting your 89-year-old great grandmother to replace Lewandowski is exactly the same level when you are thinking Roque is going to replace Lewandowski. I don't see it happening.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Sports Entertainment Weekly. I think we are at CU Weekly number 8, if I'm not mistaken. I have our usual suspects, VS and Khandalf here. So what do we have in cricket? So of course we had the Boxing Day result, Australia versus Pakistan. Both Khandalf and I have been itching to discuss that. I know we did a weekly, not a weekly, I think it was a CU reactions before, but we didn't have enough time to cover that result, and that result wasn't concluded at that point because India-South Africa game was already done and dusted, so we chose to spend the entire discussion on that. So we'll be covering Australia versus Pakistan, and then we are going to talk about South Africa sending a C squad to New Zealand, citing the SAT20 league. And we have Arsenal fumbling the bag at the top of the table in football, Liverpool ready to pounce, Chelsea pulling off a miracle that is winning against some team, and lastly, the Christmas miracle, the savior, Vitor Roque, just a 19-year-old kid that about some 20 odd million Barcelona fans are eagerly waiting for. That's all. Thank you for watching, and Khandalf. Let's begin with
Are you trying to end the episode, Kriska? Because you spoke for like 2 minutes and then you said thank you for watching.
Yeah, I think I spoke way too much that I thought the
That's all,
episode was
folks.
over.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
You see, this is what happens when you pull in senior citizens and get them to record episodes late night.
All right. So, yeah, I think a great summary of things that you can actually hope for in this episode. What an amazing test match. I think we had quite a one-sided test match as far as one of the Boxing Day tests was concerned, which is India versus South Africa. Which of course we would have loved it to be close contest, closely contested, but it wasn't to be. The other side, where again in the southern hemisphere we had Australia versus Pakistan, which was, to my surprise, it was probably well fought. Pakistan showed up for the first time in this series. They were really close, except for a few missed chances. And against a team like Australia, you cannot have missed chances. We saw that in the World Cup. We saw that in the Ashes. Everywhere, you give them a sniff, they will actually take you by storm and then probably win it from there. So I think Pakistan did not capture those chances. Is what I felt. So I think what do you think like of the key performances which really caught your eye, Chris?
Thank you once again, Gandalf. First of all, very excited about the result. I think that capped off quite possibly the best year for you and I as Australia fans. The year turned out to be much better than what either of us or anybody in our community would have hoped for. And coming into the Boxing Day test itself, I think we put a typical Pat Cummins led performance, where there were a lot of moments where it looked like the other team was going to walk away, but Pat Cummins stood his ground, put his foot down, and said, "Nah, not today. This is not the day you see me and my men break sweat." Right? There
Yeah,
was
what an
a
amazing
brief.
player and what an amazing captain, and it probably justifies the 20 odd crore tag that he got at the IPL auctions as well. Like, you get a full package. Like, he turns up every time there was a little doubt whether Australia would actually win the Boxing Day Test or Pakistan would actually win it for the first time in probably what 20 odd years. I don't know how long. The last time Pakistan won a Test match, not a series, the last time Pakistan won a Test match in Australia was in 1995, if I'm not wrong, and that was in Sydney. So they never won a Test match, and this was almost close. I don't think they can ever come close again to beating Australia. This was a good team. It was new, inexperienced international cricketers. I was really impressed by some of the Pakistan bowlers. They really were bowling well, toe to toe with the Australian fast bowlers. I would say sometimes even better lines. But yeah, when it came to those 50-50 moments, I think Australia won those moments, and that's where the game changed. And Pat Cummins was really key in turning those moments in favor of Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. And shout out to a couple of amazing performances. Mitchell Marsh, I know we briefly touched on this when we were covering the South Africa India game as well. But Marsh is somebody whose test career is quite literally on the line with Cameron Green sniffing for a spot. And I don't think sniffing for a spot is even accurate. In fact, it's the other way around. So because Cameron Green couldn't make it to this test, Mitch Marsh actually got an opportunity. Otherwise, he has actually gone on record saying that how a 29 or 30-year-old Mitchell Marsh is an understudy to a 24-year-old Cameron Green. And for Mitchell Marsh to actually grab the chance with both his hands, those big, long bison hands, to a point where, I don't think we are going to be looking past uh, Mitch Marsh for at least the next couple of games.
Yeah, definitely. I think Mitch Marsh is playing the whole summer. In all formats, and he's going to play the limited overs matches as well this entire summer. And he has become that mainstay in the Test team now after the Ashes 100, and now very crucial 90s in the two Test matches. I think I don't think he really cares about that 100, but that would have been nice. But I think they will not really be dropping Mitch Marsh anytime soon, but they are probably concerned about a replacement for Warner at this stage. And if I'm reading the things right, Cameron Green is touted to probably open at some stage if they really do not want to take risks with some of the players who are untested yet. See, Cameron Bancroft, it's been a while. He's probably the leader of the pack in terms of who will replace David Warner at the top. It could be Cameron Bancroft for all we know, based on the Sheffield Shield form that he has been in, or it could be someone like Matt Renshaw, who's also
Renshaw.
played international cricket for Australia, but a different kind of player, a tall opener, probably in the mold of someone like Alistair Cook for England. But yeah, he's from Matt Renshaw is from Queensland, so more like a Matthew
Yeah.
Hayden prospect. The last one is Marcus Harris, who's also played for Australia multiple times. Many chances given, thanks to Justin Langer, who favored Marcus Harris being in the team. But personally, I think Marcus Harris has been given enough chances. His time is up. It should be probably one of Bancroft or Renshaw. Or if they do not want to really go with either of these two, they should try to open with Cameron Green, who's really flexible. He can probably open and play someone like a Shane Watson kind of role, right? So Shane Watson batted for Australia right from the top all the way to number 5, 6, 7. So I think Cameron Green can fit into that opener's role very easily.
Yeah, I would actually disagree with that. I don't think Cameron Green has shown enough promise down the order to justify him opening with the prospect of facing the new ball against the who's and who's of the pace bowling attack, right? Especially away from home. I'm I would favor Matt Renshaw more because he has that resoluteness about him. He's also 27, uh, entering or already in his prime, and he has better technique to open than Cameron Green. But moving on from the topic of Warner and his potential replacements, what do you think of Steve Smith? I know he scored 50 and I don't know, maybe 50 or little
26 in the
under
first
in the
innings, yeah,
first
around
innings.
somewhere around
Uh,
20s,
yeah,
yeah, mid 20s in the first innings, and I think
yeah.
50 in the second innings. I think he probably looked really comfortable in the second innings. Surprisingly, usually is the
Would you
first
say he
innings
got his
being
hand
slow.
back?
Yeah, he got found his hands. Yeah, so I think yeah, Steve Smith. We all rate him way too high, and he has probably put the bar right up there. And any mediocrity that comes across in a few seasons probably seems like Steve Smith is out of form. But I think he's always been that way. I think he will definitely crack 100 in the Sydney Test or something like that. And I don't judge him by his hundreds. I think he's played a key role in each of the Australian wins. Not just in the World Test Championship. It was also in the World Cup as well, and then after that in the current two matches that were played. Like you might not see a 50 or a 100 every time from him, but then the role, the kind of support that he provides at the crease, that's absolutely invaluable to the team. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So he has transferred from the Superman, who's the face of the team, to more like a butler or a Robin, who's always the second fiddle and letting somebody else shine. But they couldn't have done it without Steve Smith's clutch but subdued performance. Uh, 50 is definitely something to uh, be happy about, but I think we all need 100 from him. That's always special, and he deserves a few more hundreds in his kitty before he hangs up his boots.
Yeah,
So
the
I'm
good thing is
sure
that
if it were
we
a
Australia won the series with
yeah,
that with the Sydney Test to go against Pakistan, and just some news that Mohammad Hafiz, the Pakistan director, has also said that Pakistan played better cricket than the other team. He did not say Australia, so Pakistan played better cricket than the
oh,
other team. And
absolutely. And so did
yeah,
England in the Ashes and India in
yeah.
the
So
WTC finals, India in the World Cup once again. It's impossible how much Australia have been getting away. I'm pretty sure they must have, went into Harry
yeah.
Potter's room after hours and stolen his Lady Luck potion. Otherwise, no team can get away with results like this with such mediocre performances where they have been the second better team.
Absolutely. Like, the Ashes vs. Just for information, according to England, England won the moral Ashes.
Yeah,
And the
I
World
heard that.
Cup, according to Mohammad Kaif, Australia won the World Cup, but then India were the better team on paper. So right now, Australian home summer, Australia have the trophy in terms of the series against Pakistan. But of course, the better team was Pakistan.
They must be incredibly lucky, right, to go on winning
Absolutely.
streaks every time, even when they are the second best team. So we need to really reevaluate the term second best team as of now. And since the Australian boys have finally moved on from Australia, what do you think about Pakistan's newfound aura? I must say, under the captaincy of Shan Masood, they look far more amicable on the pitch. They are better behaved, and they are taking the game professionally instead of going into a war. There were even scenes of I think it was Hassan Ali engaging the Australian crowd in a round of warm up. So how do you see this newfound Pakistani charisma?
Yeah, I think Hassan Ali has always been a character, and the Bay 13 at the MCG is always known for engaging with some of the players who actually field in those positions. So you can probably go back in time to the days of Merv Hughes, who used to be a fan favorite at that position near Bay 13. It's very much like the Holly stand in England and Edgbaston, which is known to
I
be
think
very
I think
rowdy
it's
and
also the fans, right, Khandalf. So
yeah,
Australian crowd, they have known to take they're known to take a joke in a good sense. I mean,
yeah,
I've seen it in the past. There was this one incident where Rahul Dravid was batting, and Dravid being Dravid, he kept batting and he kept batting, and
Oh
he did not
yeah.
care about scoring runs. So he middled some 50, 60 odd balls from Bradley and co. And finally, he scored a run, and the Australian crowd cheered Rahul Dravid scoring the first run, and he raised the bat to them, and yeah, he jumped up close.
yeah,
So I would say the
classic.
Kangaroos are a pretty funny crowd when it comes to that, and that does tend to rub off.
Yeah, they just give back some good banter to the fielders who, if they
Yeah,
drop a catch, then good luck to you if you're standing near them in those fielding positions, and especially if you're in the opposition side. And I think there was sometime in the past as well. Just sorry to take another minute there, Kriska. There was Ajit Agarkar, if I recall, wasn't able to open his account in the entire series. Like he was getting out for ducks, like in every test match that was being played. And I think finally he scored a run in one of the test matches. I think five consecutive ducks or something like that, if I recall. So then he scored a run, and finally the whole stadium went like full of cheer, and then everyone was cheering that one run.
Yeah.
I think Agakar also acknowledged it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
As
moving
usual,
on to
it is up
Kriska. So,
to
Kriska, I
me.
think you had something to say about Pakistan under their new captain,
Yeah, as
veteran
usual, it's up to
captain.
me to shepherd Gandalf back from his nostalgia uh, dose or whatever it is, and bring him back to the original question that we has asked, which was actually about Pakistan. This should be studied as case study in legal schools. How Gandalf manages to turn every question and every subject on the planet about Australia. You could be talking about global warming, and he would find a way to tell how Warner and Sunrisers Hyderabad. Uh, where won a trophy in 2016 or something, and
I
how
would probably relate it to the coral reefs which are under threat on the Queensland coast.
The Great
Uh,
Barrier.
and then move on to Queensland Bulls and then Matthew Hayden and
yeah,
Usman Khwaja.
yeah, this is a brain that we must study, but one we must not always engage with, because otherwise this will turn into an Australia fanboy channel. As if it's already halfway there with both of us. But coming back to Pakistan, we must talk about them because they deserve a lot of credit for the way they came out and presented themselves, considering nobody gave them a chance to do that. I was particularly impressed with Shan Masood as the captain. Pakistan historically has had a problem of captains wanting to be larger than life characters, but not necessarily having the talents or even the emotional quotient to back it up. I'm looking at you, Babar Azam, or even somebody a great like Shahid Afridi, right? But this guy, Shan Masood, he has captain Yorkshire already. He's 34. He carries himself well. He knows what he says. He's not overly emotional. He knows how to rally his team around. He knows how to uh, keep the team in harmony, which in itself is the biggest success for any Pakistani captain, let alone what they do on the field. And based on what I've seen from Pakistan in the last two tests, that is definitely a lot of that is definitely down to Shan Masood. So full credits to him. My only spite with it is when I learnt of his captaincy and I saw how he performed, I went back and checked, and I was actually sad to see that he's already 34. I'm like, where did you hide this guy all these years? You have somebody who has the perfect captaincy medal, but you're probably not going to enjoy him for more than a year from now.
Yeah, I think a lot has got to do with his stats, international stats. It's his high average is not really high in the 40s or something like Babar Azam or someone, even someone like Rizwan or someone. He's not a, like a poster boy for Pakistan cricket in that regard. So I think that's where he probably flew under the radar for a long time. And secondly, I think a lot of credit, I agree with you, Chris, on the fact that he's led the team very well with a lot of balance and poise, and a lot has got to probably do with the exposure, as you call out Yorkshire. And I think he's, if I'm not wrong about his history, he's spent a lot of time in England growing up in his early years, and then moved to, I think, North America. I'm not sure US or Canada, but then and then before coming back to Pakistan and then settling. So I think a lot of exposure in terms of various teams and various cultures probably makes him an outsider in the Pakistan team in terms of looking at things, from a bird's eye view, and settling factions and the infighting that usually happens within Pakistan teams. So I think that's where probably he has come in really handy in terms of handling it well professionally, due to his exposure and everywhere he has been, all the teams that he has been part of.
Yep, absolutely. And anybody who has followed Pakistan cricket in the last 2 3 years, the purists kind of hate it the same way they critique Pat Cummins' Australia. But this Pakistan side is actually very affable. So you look at the players individually, somebody like a Shaheen Afridi or even Mohammad Rizwan, who's always animated on the field. You actually don't have any reason to dislike any of these blokes. You feel like you actually want to cheer for them. You feel like in a neutral series that doesn't involve an India or an Australia, all of us here would actually be supporting Pakistan against most of the other nations, and that shows what a long way that they have come from almost a war-stricken philosophy to cricket, and I think that's really commendable. And I think that is going to lay the foundation for Pakistan to find their way back into the you know discussions being a test playing superpower once again. And who knows, possibly even this is the first step in them coming back to the IPL. So that said, moving on from this topic, speaking of IPL, there is also another league that is apparently killing cricket, and this time it, there is no smoke without fire. Of course, I'm talking about South Africa and their announcement from today, where they have practically listed a C squad that is going to face New Zealand, because most of their test team batters and veterans, they are all going to be out on South Africa's T20 from January onwards. So, thoughts on that, VS? And
I've just heard of only two players in that squad that they announced, and I have not seen them play too.
good, that's 200% more than me then.
And this, Kriska, your question is strictly not exactly related to purely to cricket. This is a general trend in general, because ultimately, more than just fans, we are also consumers of the sport, and the sport is a product. So when somebody says one particular format of cricket is killing another, you also have to look behind the reason from a purely consumeristic or far worse, a capitalistic point of view, in the sense that it is competition, and it is survival of the fittest. So it leaves very little place for feelings, for sympathy, for nostalgia. So wherever the money goes, cricket follows. And from that point of view, the reason why South African players, and many of them, prioritize the local T20 league over the Test cricket is purely the crowd engagement, the money that it rakes in, and all the involvement. So if you say that Test cricket is dying, or much rather, if you say that Test cricket is being killed by T20 or local T20 formats, I wouldn't say it's necessary to villainize T20 format in itself, because if Test is losing its attraction, if it's losing the sheen, it will also depend on the sport and the fans. So if the fans are engaging with the sport as much as the other formats, nothing's going to die, and that is just the law of the society that we live in.
Yes, I would actually disagree with you here. The reason that this news has come as mild shock to most of the cricketing fraternity is the strides that Test cricket has made in the last few years, wherein it has found its mojo back. Most of the Test series, especially after this new WTC format, has found its meaning, and the series themselves have been thrilling. We looked at the Boxing Day between Australia and Pakistan, beat the Ashes, and this move from South Africa almost feels like a step backward after having taken giant fat steps in the right direction to restoring the legacy and greatness of Test cricket. Khandalf, thoughts
Your
on that?
argument, Kriska, is
Yeah.
valid
So
only
so
as long
why?
as you consider all the fans to be of uniform in nature. So, you as an ardent cricket fan, you as somebody who follow cricket very closely and is willing to take the time out to follow what's happening in Test cricket over long 5 days, would certainly find it absolutely engaging and moreover competitive. I'm not denying that Test cricket has made huge strides in of late, but then you also have to understand that fans are not necessarily of the same ilk. There are people who much rather prefer to watch cricket over a shorter term format, because there are more boundaries, the actions are far more quicker, and the results are delivered in the same day within a matter of hours. And given the pace of the world that we live in, it is not impossible to think that there not exactly a huge majority, but the bigger section of fans would actually find it more pleasing to watch a format of cricket that gets over in 4 hours than to
I
have
think
that
VS, you have a
commitment.
point there. You have a point there. I agree with you partly, and I think with regard, especially with regard to the point about fans being different in each part of the world and fan preferences being very different
Exactly.
with respect to various demographics. So I think that's absolutely right. And the South African Cricket Board, Cricket South Africa (CSA), is actually dying. Cricket in South Africa is actually dying, if not already dead. At least from a spectatorship point of view, live spectatorship point of view. Maybe people are watching it on TVs, maybe people are watching it on streams. But then, if you look at any of the test matches or even one day matches that happen in South Africa, the crowd is absolutely shocking. You cannot find a stadium full even for some of the best matches that have been played in South Africa, and that's so sad to see South African cricket dying. And if there is no revenue, obviously you can't pay the players, and then it's a chain reaction. You will have lesser people preferring cricket as a career option, and in a country with limited resources where rugby is a leading sport already, and you have football as a very fast growing sport there, and cricket is probably third or fourth there. So I think from a purely economical point of view and business point of view, it makes sense to prioritize. And I think this is where they are betting on getting the best stars, the top stars of the country to feature in the SA20 league, so that they can actually put that up to attract young fans into the game. And that's what will build the future for them. Something like how the 100 is bringing in young fans in England. Maybe people in their 30s and 40s and 50s may actually enjoy watching 2020 or one day cricket or even test cricket in England. But the young fans in the, let's say, 7 to 15-year-old
And
age group,
Exactly.
and
yeah.
For
how
the
did
So,
sport
that
to
work out for
continue,
England?
you have to bring
How did
in
that work out?
viewers.
see,
Because there is a chance that once a young fan starts watching T20, he might start supporting players or the game, start having an affinity to a certain team. And once you watch the same player whom you support in T20 going out there in test, so in order to introduce a newer crowd to a brand new product, you
exactly.
have to do it at the very grassroots level. You cannot expect them to immediately start following the purest form of cricket as such. So you have to give them a trailer, and South Africa is probably very much intending to do that by prioritizing the T20 league, is to get the younger audience a trailer as to what cricket is, hoping that it eventually takes off. But then
Look,
on the
Chris,
other hand,
yeah, Chris,
it's
if
not
you
all
if
doom
you
and gloom for cricket, because if you notice, cricket has grown multitudes in a lot of other places. Afghanistan being a classic example, and the Netherlands cricket team I've heard in Europe are making strides forward. Ireland, of all nations, having been situated in the same piece of island or landmass as England, are also kind of slowly growing into the sport. So it all depends on bringing in the audience and captivating the audience, and it's cool to give them a trailer instead of the full product.
Yeah, Chris, look, if you are asking me whether I like it or not, I would probably say I don't. Like
And as the question
some
is it
other.
necessary or not?
Yeah, exactly. So, SA20 being preferred over Test cricket by the cricket board and some of the top stars, I don't like it one bit. But is it necessary? Like we have said, yes, probably it is to resurrect the board and the administration and the players and bring some new fans into the game. So, I think to build the grassroots level cricket and talent pool, they probably need it, and they wouldn't probably do it just for the sake of it, right? So, there should have been some long term thought which might have gone into it.
Okay, fair enough. I guess the jury is still out on this one because who knows? For what it's worth, South Africa's C squad might just go and pull off an upset, and that could be just the future replacements for the likes of Temba Bavuma, Elgar, or Quinton de Kock that South Africa managed to find over one series because their hands were forced. In which case, it is probably a win for their Test cricket as well. Cool,
Yeah,
but let's wait this out.
for the just for the sake of our rituals, David Warner. I'm bringing the Australian reference. So David Warner was found in 2020, and he turned out to be the player that he turned out to be, like in Test cricket, in one day, a legend across formats. So he was first spotted in a 2020 international, 2020 game. So yeah, who knows?
I think with that we can move on to another sport where the clubs have already taken over international cricket, but they have managed to do a very good job of it. We, as our in-house football expert, what do we have in store for this week? What are your thoughts on my favorite meme that is finally getting to uh, play out, considering that Arsenal are no longer the top of the table?
So, first of all, Arsenal are not exactly a polar bear in Arlington, Texas. I would say something like, they are a salamander in Arlington, Texas. They belong where they belong without being the apex predator over there. So, considering how the rankings at the top have changed, first of all, we have to accept and acknowledge that Arsenal did a brilliant job throughout the season so far. And it's a shame that me sitting here with the Chelsea background have to admit it, but it is true. But then at the same time, it's all about perspective, because sometimes when you see a team edging out matches that they should have drawn or lost, to minor victories. Sometimes when teams are walking on the edge but always falling over to the right side, you do call it championship, winning mentality. And Khandalf's erstwhile favorite team, Manchester United, were kind of infamous for doing that, for getting victories when there was not exactly a result. So some would say it is a winning mentality. Some would say that they are not winning convincingly. So it does depend on your perspective, and that is also the case with Arsenal. So Arsenal,
Yes,
even being, yeah, Kriska.
before we move further, I'm just going to quickly refresh our viewers' memory by reading out the table. So Liverpool is currently top of the table. They played 19 and they have 42 points. Next up is actually, like you probably mentioned, Arsenal is not in fact the polar bear, but it is Aston Villa of all teams who is sitting second, having played 20 games and level on points with Liverpool. Right behind you have Manchester City with 19 games played, but 2 points behind at 40 points. And lastly, we have Gunners who have played 19 games and are on 40 points. What that means is Gunners are effectively one game behind most of them. And if they manage to win that, they would actually go back to the top of the table. With that context set, I will let you continue.
Yeah.
For
So
for
talking about
most part
from
of my football watching experience, this is where I have seen Arsenal number four.
number
And you
four,
mean to
yeah.
say that they're going to number one from here if they win a match?
The likely outcome is that they will, but then they won't be staying there for long. And the point I was trying to say was that the off late the victories that Arsenal have had in the last few months, especially late November and early December, they won a lot of matches, and against that is a very important thing as well, against comparatively weaker opposition. For example, they won at Luton Town, and it was not exactly a victory that felt like a victory. They managed to escape with one. Same story happened at Wolves. It was again not a victory, but then they somehow managed to escape with 3 points. So some Arsenal fans would preferably call it winning mentality. We deliver where it matters, but then at the same time they are also not winning convincingly, and that is catching up with them. So the reason why they are not winning convincingly is that their levels have actually dipped. At least from the last season, the players' levels, especially up front in attack, have actually dipped. Martinelli, he's not putting up the numbers that you, as an Arsenal fan, are used to see him put up in the starting 11. Saka continues to deliver from a playmaking and ball carrying point of view, but then he is kind of lacking the clinical edge up front. And Gabriel Jesus has never exactly been a great finisher, and he has been sticking to his job, but he's not firing on all cylinders either. So Arsenal dropping a few places makes sense. You have
Yes, I'm glad you brought up Gabriel Jesus and Saka, because I was just going through some of the statistics for the top of the table teams, and this is really interesting. So if you look at the top goal scorers for each of these teams at the top, you have Mohamed Salah, who has scored 12 goals so far this season in 19 games. And for Manchester City, of course, you have Erling Haaland, the robot, who has again scored 14 goals in just 15 matches. And I'm not sure about Aston Villa's numbers here. Let me quickly check that. So their top goal scorer is Oli Watkins with 9 goals from
yeah.
19 games. But if you look at Arsenal, their top goal scorer is actually Nketiah with just 5 goals. And the
Who's
second
actually a
top
backup
scorer for
striker as well,
Arsenal is
who's not a lead
Saka,
goal
again
scorer.
at 5 goals.
Yeah.
So
Again,
I
Kriska,
think
this is
this is
something
eventually
again
going to
that
be the difference between Arsenal.
again a debate of perspective over here. So in a certain way you can make that sound as a positive, that in Arsenal we are not dependent on one particular player to score in every game. Our goals are spread throughout the team. So Nketiah, who's a backup, he comes in and scores 5 goals. The lead striker scores a few goals. Martinelli and Saka, they score a few. Odegaard, their attacking midfielder, he's also known to score a few goals. And even their centre back, Gabriel, the Brazilian, he's also known to chip in with a few goals. So is that a good thing or a bad thing? For in one way, you can say that the goals are spread throughout the team, which paints a positive picture. Okay, we don't need to rely on one player to score. But then at the same time, you can also paint it in a bad light by saying they do not have a clear goal scorer who goes out there and puts the numbers. So which is why saying that
Yeah,
Arsenal are necessarily good when they are topping the table is wrong. And also saying that Arsenal have dipped or dropped certain levels when they are dropping a few places in the table is also wrong, because they have been consistently performing at this level, and they have in certain games overperformed and got a few points than usual. For Arsenal, I'm not one of the subjectivity research where I say everything is subjective. No, there is an objective morality that exists, but in the case of Arsenal's performance,
no, you're
it
just a
is extremely
Schrodinger's
subjective.
wizard based on the things that you're saying.
For in Arsenal's case, it certainly depends on the way you look at it, because it's hard not to say that they have a competitive mentality, because if you look at it, they have gotten results where you wouldn't expect Arsenal teams of the old to get points, but then at the same time they are not dominating teams like Manchester
Yeah,
City in full flow.
I think you're absolutely right, BS. And the only way this debate will be put to rest is whether Arsenal finish this season with a trophy or not. I think it's as simple as
Absolutely
that.
no.
But I do think that they should go for a pure striker in the summer transfer window. I do hope it's somebody of the highest caliber, maybe somebody like Victor Osimhen, or Lewandowski is actually perfect for Arsenal, a proven striker who is still world class, who can take them to the title, similar to how
Given the
Robin
way
van Persie.
Arteta has gone about business so far, I would say that he would much rather go for depth than to change up the entire tactic by bringing in a new striker to lead the attack in the second half of the season. So yeah, not really happening. And just moving on from Arsenal, you mentioned that Aston Villa at 2 is probably the polar bear, and here I disagree again, because Aston Villa and West Ham are two of the teams that have had the best summers in terms of the transfers that they've made. So the Aston Villa team, it's full of talent. It is young. It has a good mix of experience as well. They have an elite, and I'm saying sometimes when players are playing in lower ranked teams without a huge fan following across the globe, they are not rated as highly as they should be, which is the case for Aston Villa's defensive midfielder Douglas Lewis. He is going to be eventually playing in the top club. They have some top players, and they have a coach who knows how to win trophies. So them being second exactly is definitely a matter of time before they drop. But you cannot be surprised if Aston Villa end the season with a spot in one of Europe's premier competitions. It's not far fetched.
Right. Okay,
And
something
just
else
one
that
more
we
thing
need.
regarding the top of the table. Kriska, what's the team who's on top? Like, who's number one?
Liverpool.
And what do you think about Liverpool? Do you think Liverpool should be number one?
I think, personally, I've just slept on Liverpool. I think they've been very quiet. I don't think they've been winning games in the swashbuckling fashion that we have gotten
Exactly.
used to under Jurgen Klopp. But suddenly you wake up and you see them at the top of the table.
That is a man, Jurgen Klopp. He is the biggest strength Liverpool has. He is the ultimate weapon. Liverpool's attack, Darwin Nunes has flattered to deceive. He fires on certain cylinders while misfiring on certain others. Salah has been as consistent as he's ever been, and you also have to remember that Liverpool had a failed transfer window. So their transfer window, their first target, Caicedo, was eventually bought for an overpriced sum by none other than my favorite Chelsea. And their backup target, Romeo Lavia, also eventually ended up Chelsea, and they had to settle for Mr. Wataru Endo, the Japanese defensive midfielder. So they had somewhat of a tough summer, and still they are here, number one. But one thing you have to remember is that Mohamed Salah, they're consistent and only reliable attacker as of now. They have attacking talent, make no mistake. Diego Jota, Nunes, and even the Colombian, they are all good
Luis
attackers.
Diaz.
Yeah, Luis Diaz, and but the key player is Salah, and Salah is leaving for Africa Cup of Nations, and he will be away for a month or so, and Liverpool are expected to drop certain points over there. And Kriska, who is actually the polar bear in Arctic? Like, if you look at the PL table, who should be like where is the polar bear sitting? It's not for 1, 2, or 3.
I think it's actually Manchester United at this point at number
Ah,
7,
no, no. Manchester
given
United
the
are
way
where
that
they're
they have
exactly
played.
supposed to be. It's actually the
Okay,
club
you're
where
gonna say
Manchester United.
Tottenham. You want me to say
No, no, no,
Tottenham, and
no,
I'm not
no,
going to
no,
do that.
no. It's actually Manchester City. Manchester City sitting at third in the PL table
Uh,
is actually polar bear in Arlington, because they are supposed to be sitting at number one, which is where I believe they will be in a few
hey,
months'
but
time,
yeah,
because
exactly.
they have already put De Bruyne in the hyperbolic time chamber. They are bringing him back. They are bringing John Stones back, and we have seen City do this. So once City gets there, all the players. De Bruyne has pulled off this trick so many times that I'm bored of it. Every time, first half of the season, he goes away for a little while, gives everybody hope, and then he comes back on the second half.
Yeah,
They go on a winning streak and they lift the table. And the story is set to repeat again. Haaland is
about that.
also injured now. Now Haaland and De Bruyne are going to come back together along with the key man, John Stones. I kept saying it that John Stones makes City the machine run like clockwork, because he's that player who will be going into the midfield when City are in possession and going back to form a flat four defense when City are defending. So you can totally expect City to start romping up the table in a few months' time, in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only reason I didn't call out City is because this is their playbook, right? So they let every other team in the Premier League warm up the top of the table up until Xmas time. And once Pep Guardiola comes back after his chocolate milkshake and his Subway cookies, then they're all ready to challenge for the title at the time when it matters. This is where City's insane depth and those bottomless bank balances from the oil nation is actually helping them out big time. So it doesn't matter who's in or out. Come at January, they have a squad that can hit full throttle, go into fifth gear, and challenge for title no matter where they are till then.
And PS, why do you think Liverpool is going to drop a few points when Mo Salah is not available? Do you think they're very reliant on a couple of players like Salah? Or
It is no crime to be reliant on Mohamed Salah because he is that good.
yeah,
So to lose a player of Salah's caliber is simply a huge loss. I mean, if even if Salah were a City player, if they lost Salah, that would matter on the overall results. And apart from that, I told you that Wataru Endo is the only classified defensive midfielder that they have. Although Alexis McAllister has been doing a pretty decent job of it. So they'll be losing two players in two key positions. And make no mistake, Endo, although he was not the primary target that they wanted, he's a key player to Klopp's system. So they are losing two key players. They do not have a lot of depth in these positions. And Manchester City are going to come all guns blazing. And they do not, in the absence of Mohamed Salah, although their attack has talent, he is the
And
one that links everything together. So it's not just one
yeah,
player
just to
going
makes
off to
sense.
another place. That player being removed affects the overall link, overall chemistry of the entire team.
Makes
agree.
sense.
And just to interject here, after Salah, their second highest goal scorer, Darwin Nunez, sits at a pretty 5 goals for the season. So
Yeah.
while Salah is at 12, being the right winger. That sums up our Premier League portion. And speaking of right wingers and strikers, as a Barcelona fan, I absolutely have to bring this up. We have the homecoming of Vitor Roque. Finally, at a time we desperately need him. Barcelona signed him last summer. They tried desperately to bring him back in the summer itself, but the Brazilian club wouldn't budge. But they have managed to bring him in the winter. And given the way Lewandowski is playing, I'm sure my 87-year-old grandfather on his wheelchair would be an upgrade to the Barcelona lineup right now. That a 19-year-old Vitor Roque, who is one of the hottest prospects in Brazilian and world football, is actually going to come to walk into this lineup is actually pretty exciting for me.
Kriska, I do have a word of caution for you there because I do not exactly agree with most of what you said. I mean, definitely Vitor is coming and he's joining, but I do not expect him to replace Lewandowski immediately in the team. As bad as Lewandowski is right now, he is a top player. And the thing with Vitor that is not exactly selling off with me is that first of all he's coming straight out of Brazilian league, which is at least a couple tires lower than the level at which La Liga is played. Secondly, he is not technically exactly the hottest prospect to come out of Brazilian football as a striker right now. If you look at the last series, he was not picked for the under 21 side. There were three other strikers whom the Brazil coach felt was going to go above him, and I think one of them was Endrick, the other one was George Washington, David Washington. So there are reservations about his ability to consistently finish attacks, but what Barcelona are getting is certainly an alternative and competition to Lewandowski, to steer him on. I think the reason why Barcelona are actually bringing Roque this early is A, to motivate Lewandowski, not to put Peter Roque in the squad and expect him to deliver. And secondly, you also have to remember the circumstance under which he was bought. Barcelona did not plan on bringing him in the January window because you had an injury. You had an unfortunate injury crisis that involved Gavi, because of which your balance books, your tightly packed balance books, had a very teeny little bit of space to squeeze in another player. And then you thought, okay, let's bring in Vitor Roque. That was never the plan. So it is unfair if you expect Roque to go into the team and start delivering. The player definitely has potential. The coaches do rate him. But as of now, he's a raw product. That's what the Brazilian coaches believe. So you expecting your 89-year-old great grandmother to replace Lewandowski is exactly the same level when you are thinking Roque is going to replace Lewandowski. I don't see it happening.
Well, I hope for the sake of Barcelona and my and Dave's mental peace, he proves you wrong. I do believe that the Barcelona fans have been putting up a lot of undue pressure on Vitor Roque. I don't think these were
Exactly.
the circumstances that he was meant to come in. So he was
Yes.
meant to walk in with a Lewandowski firing on all cylinders, somebody that he can learn from. but instead
Actually,
Lewandowski
Kriska, he was
decided to
meant to join
retire.
your squad this year in April 2024. April, he was supposed to join your squad, have a full preseason under Savi's coaching, and then be a backup to Lewandowski in what could have
For a
been
year.
Lewandowski's final
Yep.
season at
Yep.
Barcelona. So that was the plan. So he comes into Barcelona, he gets 4 months of preparation time over there.
Yeah.
Then he gets a whole year as an understudy to Lewandowski before he is passed the mantle to. Now you are expecting him to do is you are expecting him to come completely displace Lewandowski and carry Barcelona's attacks, which I think is a very unfair expectation for a young player that is this raw. It's not
Absolutely
happening, mate.
true. To quote a cricketing legend, experts would have asked me to get Roque as my understudy, but I, Lewandowski, had other ideas.
The situation
So,
has forced your hand, and it's
yeah.
certainly not favorable for the player.
Right. So, a lot of promise ending this year and awaiting 2024. Khandalf, do you quickly want to sum up what we have at CU in store for uh, the end of the year, New Year's Eve?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have an exciting show coming up with the top 10 to 15 happenings, the biggest sporting moments of 2023 that you might have witnessed or you might have missed in cricket, WWE, and football, both international, domestic, and across all the leagues, right? So we will take a look at all those, maybe not in any particular order, but probably the top two spots are already reserved for the Cricket World Cup win for Australia. And also the second spot, I think I would give it to Johnny Bairstow's stumping, just to call out a couple of spoilers there. But we can all look forward to the top 15, 20 moments that we have witnessed in 2023 coming up next for all of you guys. Until then, it's goodbye from us. Kriska, VS, I think we have one more episode before we say Happy New Year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do.
All right.
See you guys. Bye.